Amish paradise.
Yeah. What is the most I love living in an Amish paradise?
All right, we're gonna do this. What?
Yeah, we're ready. This is for my haters.
Yep.
DynastyWise 2018, bitch, mic drop.
Play the morning rapper.
Yeah.
Or not the morning Amish rapper.
Got my horse and buggy. Stop and get a tuggy.
Welcome to Dynasty Wise Guys podcast. I'm here today with Pat.
Let's get in it.
And Clay.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Y'all got some Twitter handles you want to promote?
At DynastyWise Clay and at DynastyWise Fantasy Football.
Mine's at DynastyWise Padu.
And I'm DynastyWise Chad.
And the website will be March 1st is what we're looking at right
March
now.
1st, I believe so.
Miss Archfizzers.
And that's DynastyWise.com.
Yes.
.com.
Today's podcast, we'll start our series off, moving from a startup league into a dynasty league. Some of the things you need to know on making the transition smooth. Pat, first thing we should do when deciding to go from a redraft league to a dynasty, what are your thoughts?
Well, I know when we went from redraft to dynasty, the most important thing for us was to have a vote on it. That's something that, as a league, I mean, we actually presented it and discussed it. Other than that, we had a commissioner and all that, so we just kind of decided and we discussed it, and we were keeper. We kind of made the mistake of, I mean, going keeper at first is okay. It sounds good in theory, but it just kind of wastes time. You know, you wasted a year or two instead when you should have just gone dynasty. When
you did your vote, do you look for a unanimous vote, or are you trying to find just a large majority? How do you go about that?
Unanimous is ultimately what you want, because if everybody's on board, okay, we're all in favor of it, we like it, let's go. If you can get a majority or 2/3, at least majority and all that. If all the other owners are on board, then it'd be great. It's like, well, we're not going to vote for it, but if this is what the league wants to do, then we'll do it.
Before you went into a dynasty mode, did y'all do IDP in your keeper leagues or your redraft leagues?
No, it was team defense for a while. Then I think even our first year in dynasty was still team defense. And then it was brought to the table, voted on, go to IDP. And
now, was that something that everybody in the league was for, or how'd that back and forth go at the meeting where y'all discussed
I know it
that?
wasn't unanimous. I'll tell you that. Like most things, there was arguments, but it still passed. And I think even the ones that were skeptical at first, they don't want to go back. They would never go back to team defense now.
Yeah, Clay's exactly right on that, because it was there was some heavy debate on it because they felt like it was getting too intricate. There was too many details, too many things to work out, this and that. Which actually IDP is pretty simple. I mean, the scoring isn't real complicated or anything like that, but you vote on it and everybody decided on it, and like Clay said, there was some heavy debate on it, and it was a great discussion. And when we decided to go with it actually opened up, and the draft changed, the trades changed, everything changed to a much better and more intense league.
Now, when y'all started y'all's dynasty that y'all are in now, social media was not as big as it is nowadays. How did y'all communicate as far as meetings and things like that? Did y'all hold discussions in different forums? How did y'all really do that when y'all did the startup to begin with?
Originally, I mean, it was mainly text messages and phone calls. You'd have to call or emails. We ran through I think it was ESPN at the time. So we had everybody's email. So we'd email them, and there would usually be a group text, which group texts suck now. Everybody knows that. You hear the phones ringing, all that.
Turn it off.
Right.
Right.
But yeah, that's how we started. And then we just set meetings, and we'd have one owners meeting a year once we went dynasty. And then now
do you like that one a year, or is that enough?
It depends. Like, I think when you first start out your league, you're probably going to have multiple meetings, because I think there's going to be a lot of growing pains and figuring out what y'all like and what you don't like. And so you're going to have a lot of discussions and voting on things. But, like, you can vote, if you're league, you can vote online or however y'all want to do it and discuss things. But we feel like it's best in person. That's why we hold multiple meetings. I think you need at least 2 a year. You have your draft live, and then one meeting. Get you, see your other league owners, talk, and then discuss league issues.
And just so our listeners know, the Stakes Sunday Fantasy Football League is the league that we are all three in. I've only been in it for about 2 years now, but Clayton and Pat were both actually founders of the league. How long has this league been going now?
I want to say 13 years, something like that. 12, 13 years.
It's been a while. I remember when I first started, they were still doing redraft, and they just called me up randomly. Was like, "Well, you want to play fantasy football?" I said, "Sure." And then I drafted, and then
Were you like 12 at the time?
I was pretty young. I think I ended up winning.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly how it went down. Because I mean, at first, it was a redraft league for the first couple of years, and then,
And then we were keeper.
we went to keeper. We wanted something different. That's what it boiled down to, and I think that's what's going on right now with a lot of the dynasty leagues or redraft leagues. It's like, man, I've been doing redraft and for 10 years in the same league, and they have the same owners, and I sometimes I have to stop myself. Why are you not dynasty yet?
Yeah.
Because if you've got owners that are that dedicated to a redraft league, there's no reason why you can't
that's
do
why I
dynasty.
wanted to bring that up. The personal league that y'all are in, 13 years is a long time to be doing a dynasty. So when we talk about these things, it comes from experience. It's not just our thoughts on it. It's trials and tribulations. So nowadays we use GroupMe.
Yeah, GroupMe is a big
Facebook somewhat as far as communicating and things like that.
We do a lot of
but
discussions on
Facebook.
on
Facebook. More kind of just posting funny stuff and
GroupMe is pretty popular because in this league this dynasty I just started up, we use GroupMe.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wish we didn't because it never stops. But
you can mute it or turn your notifications off.
But that league is a trade heavy league, right? So there's a lot going on all the time.
Constantly, but there's a lot of back and forth, shit talking and stuff like that, just riling the feathers a little bit. But yeah, it's mainly who wants to trade today.
Well, that kind of brings up our next little point is you have a commissioner in that league, correct?
Yes, because he set it all up. We play at myfantasyleague.com, and I believe there's fees. But as far as everything goes, like there was a few things he laid out how he was going to start it, but ever since then it's been voted. You can run polls right there on the site. And, scoring, he's like, you want to have rivalry? If we do have rivalry week, do you want to be rewarded for it?
So basically, it was a startup that he established the rules kind of in the beginning.
Yeah,
and
as
you were
far
able
as
to
like he even asked us about roster space and stuff like that
Okay.
and everything and divisions.
Right.
But
Is
he
that a
just
route
did
you
his
would go,
scoring.
Pat, or do you kind of prefer more doing it as a owners type, president, vice president, things like that?
That's how we run ours, and it works great for us because there's a lot of little things that the president. We have a vice president, a president, and a treasurer that they handle a lot of little details. They're talking with other owners, getting some kind of discussions on putting agendas together for the next meeting. They're doing a lot of the work behind the scenes that a lot of a lot of the other owners don't see. But the owners essentially run the league because everything's voted on. The rules change and all that. That takes. The owners have to vote on that, but the officers are there to mainly enforce it.
And okay, on your officers and your rule changes, what are your parameters usually when you do that? What do you suggest to people out there? Term limits, majority votes? How do you go about coming across that when you're doing a startup?
I'm a strong believer in term limits. The way we're set up is we're doing a year or two, and then we went to 3 years. I actually like the idea of doing a couple years as an officer and then having someone vote, having new people come in. But the problem with that is you have turnover a lot. That's why we went to 3 years. That way, every year you're having an officer that's coming out of office, so you're not changing over your officers year after, every year. But it worked out good for us. I mean, but the voting and all that's a whole different beast altogether.
Yeah, we have president and vice president, but I would say like not everybody's local. The league I'm joining, I think the closest person to me would be Kentucky. Most of them are in New York and New Jersey.
We've got a Tennessee in ours.
That's what I'm
Right.
saying. So as far as I think I like the commissioner aspect. Just because he's not a
fits your league.
dictator though. Like if you got a commish, you don't want someone that's just like this is the rule. Like he votes and it's voted on.
Well, it takes a lot of pressure off of your shoulders as the owner as well.
Right.
I know how our meetings go. It's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It serves its purpose, and we get things accomplished eventually. But when you got a commish there to kind of handle a lot of that, and a lot of that's what our president does now,
Right.
Just to a lesser extent. I mean, he just kind of flows with it. But
that kind of goes back to just being familiar with the owners, the people you're getting it. Like I don't know the other people I joined that other league in except Twitter interactions. I mean, yeah, I've been interacting for a few months, but I don't know these people.
Right.
But it's all cool. Everybody's pretty cool. We get along.
That's an important part. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's one of the concerns with going with Dynasty, I guess, going back to it, is with the rules coming in and, doing bylaws and voting on all that stuff. That was more to keep it fair. And the problem with that, I mean, I guess for them, they saw a problem is it was just getting so complicated. To us, the complexities are so much more fun. Granted, we're not NFL owners, but you're so close to basically being an NFL owner. Granted, we don't have to work with, budgets and this and that and attendance and all that. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, as far as making the tough calls, dropping personnel, and having all that in place,
sometimes I'd almost rather deal with that than some of the owners in the league.
Right.
Personally, but and also when you start dealing with all that, disciplinary committees. That's another route. We suggest you might want to go. I know Clay's on our disciplinary committee. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, it's tough, whenever you have roster limits and then position limits. So you need people out there to help the other officers. They already got so much going on. You have someone else monitor everybody's roster. Make sure they're in their limits, not breaking rosters because they're violating, they're cheating, and that's not fair to everybody else in the league. So it's pretty important, whether it's one or two people. But it's a lot. You got 12 rosters to go over. It's going to take you a while, and it's a lot of extra work.
And then part of that is the fact that when you have that many owners, because we had some discussion the other day. It's like, well, all the players in my league or the owners in my league, they all do the rosters all the time. It's like, well, you are the 1% of the leagues where that happens.
8-man league, and each
it's got to be something insignificant, because I've never been in a league ever, and I've been in
at least a week or two here and there. I was
gonna say, sitting at this table collectively, we've probably been in 100+ leagues, total. I'm sure, at least, and I've never seen a league where bye week or injuries. Like, he's been out for 3 weeks. Why is he still in your starter? You know. So, and that's something that the disciplinary committee has done a great job. And it's usually just where I think typically how we handle it is the disciplinary committee just says, hey, these two are in violation, right? And
normally, I'll catch something and I'll run it normally to the VP.
Okay.
And sometimes the president, just depends. But I say, this is what I found, and I have them double check it, and then they handle it from there.
And I guess it just equates to checks and balances. Just having an extra set of eyes. And sometimes it is honestly a mistake. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's a strategy too. Well,
so with the Dynasty's different. It makes you think.
I know you've been president in our league. Clay, have you been vice before president? No, just
the
disciplinary. How is it being the president in the league? Is it a lot of work? Is it pretty laid out?
I guess it's tougher for me because when we went Dynasty, it was me that established a lot of the things. Of course, everything was voted on, and it's stressful because it's weird how you have a bunch of grown men and women, how when it comes to their team, they want to complain about everything. And
Clay's not a woman.
And you can't, unfortunately, and I'm telling, the best advice I can give anyone out there on that note right there is you can't make everybody happy. You can't. The best thing you can do is make sure their voice is heard, and make sure they get their points across, and it's going to be voted on.
You're just there to kind of keep it fair.
Yeah, you're a mediator. Yeah, okay. That's it. That's your soul in the meetings and all that. Now, there's some background stuff that, like me and the other vice president, the treasurer, we would meet. We had our own meetings on the side. We'd go to Denny's or Whataburger or something, and
I'm an IHOP guy.
Yeah, and that's fine too. But we would go and meet. We'd have discussions. Hey, when do we have a meeting? Some of the things we need to address. Hey, this is what some of the owners brought up. We need to put it on the agenda so we can discuss it. And there was a lot of discussions, and most of the time we wouldn't vote on things. Or, there's a lot of discussions we had. There was no need to vote, but we needed to vent it out and figure out, it was going to be a future problem. What can we do about it?
Okay, so first thing we need to do is make sure you vote on everything. Set up your communication, and whether it be on Facebook, wherever, get your officers in place, or if you're going to do a commissioner that way. You decide you're going to go to a dynasty. A couple guys aren't for it. They drop out. What's your next step when it comes there?
Interview process. I'm sure all the other owners, like us, we got a buddy that wants to play. You can vouch for him, and some of them might have played Dynasty, might not. And I want to. If you only have one, hopefully you got a couple candidates so you can kind of interview them and fill them out a little bit, because you want someone that's going to be committed, give you a few years. You don't want them to come in 1 year and replace. Hopefully they'll give you 3 to 5 or forever. That's what you want, because no one likes turnover and changing owners. It's a pain in the ass.
And I know a lot of the times when people heard about how our league was ran with the owners' meetings, where we'd go to Louisiana and go to the casino, or we would go, the golf course. We'd do things together as a league. They found out how we, do things together and how we vote and all that. They love it. They love the intensity of it. But when they get in it and they see it, it's like, oh my God, it's a lot more than I thought. But, that touches on what you were saying, because you want owners that want to be there.
How do you figure out which owners want to be there?
Clay said in an interview, I mean, a lot of times it's usually something goofy, even if it's just, hey man, write me a couple paragraphs about your experience and what you've done. If they're not willing to do that, they don't want to be here. I mean, if they think, oh, that's stupid, I'm not doing that. Okay, well then.
I remember my interview. I think I just called out everybody in the league and told them they're all stupid. And I know more than all of them. I think that was my way of saying that's how hardcore I am.
That was a way to go. I mean, and that's what it boiled down to. I mean, you got to do something to separate yourself apart. Just like if you're interviewing for a job, yes, it's not life changing, but
I take that approach in jobs as well.
Right.
So,
well, and it's something. I guess to fire back at you coming in, as a replacement owner. How did that process go for you? Is coming in and taking over a team because we wasn't an expansion year, so you were taking over a team.
Yeah, well, it was between me and another gentleman, Joe, that's in the league now as well, going after one spot. But little did we know, we actually had 2 spots open because another guy dropped out last minute. So I'm thinking me and Joe were both interviewing for this, and next thing I know, I'm chugging a beer and running the 40-yard dash, and like, is this my commitment right here? And
that might be the greatest thing we've ever done.
That was exactly
40.
It wasn't even about your time, it was just as a league we wanted to see.
Oh, I think I just chugged the beer and just started walking. I didn't even run.
But it was about you went through the process, and that's all we really wanted is just to know. Okay, this guy wants to be here. He's he's one of us, and he wants to enjoy it.
But as a new guy coming in, though, I mean, I really did. I wanted that level of enjoyment where I knew all these guys were serious about it, and this was something that they wanted to do and had fun, and when I heard we have meetings and there's president, I was like, sign me up. That sounds like the kind. I've been a commissioner of redraft leagues for over a decade. I had a pretty solid core in some of them, and some were just new guys every year. I like not having to deal with that. Trying to figure out if you're going to have 10 guys or 12 guys, or, if people are going to play their lineups all year. I can understand, so it's being the new guy was definitely a fun thing for me coming into a dynasty. Other thing on potential owners, when you're voting on it as the guys in the league, what are your discussions usually about? Like, is there a lot of back and forth, or is it people opposing one person or another for a certain reason? Have you ever had an instance where you're like, no, we don't like that guy?
Let's say, for example, we'll take a criteria. Somebody wants to go PPR. We'll pretend we're not a PPR league, and they want to go PPR. Typically, when you have something like that that's significant, I know you talked about the voting and all that. That'll tie back into that real quick. PPR significantly changes how the league's going to go and how people draft. So to us, that was a 2/3 vote because it has significant changes as opposed to going normal majority. So we'd have a discussion. Since it's such a big change, we would try to go around the table and allot everybody. We'd say 3 minutes or 5 minutes. Give each person 2 minutes to talk about it, make their point, move on, and then you kind of take a preliminary vote.
So we were not PPR. And it was brought to the table to go to PPR, and I was the biggest opposition for it at the time. I already know, I remember it, and
I had hesitation when I found out y'all were PPR, but then when I found out it was only half,
that was
okay.
That was my compromise. I was like, I don't want to do it. We went around, and I was like, I don't know how we discussed forever around the table. You see, it's a big league. We all get loud, and I finally was like,
I love it.
I'll meet you in the middle. You meet me at half a point, and if that's okay, maybe one day, we'll vote to go full point.
That's exactly how it went.
And that's sometimes you just got to meet in the middle. Not everybody. It's not always going to be black and white. There, you can have the middle. But I'll say this: I love PPR now.
I'm still on the fence with it. I'm okay with the half point.
It's not too much. It's not.
It's not
changing someone into like level 4, wide receiver 4. All of a sudden they're same level as D-Hop and AB just because.
And I mean, I know people who are just so diehard set on it, but when you ask them why, they can't give you a reason. It's just, I think it's just they.
Fantasy's about scoring points.
Yeah, they want to get that 200 mark on their score for some reason. Like, get off on it. But
what I found that it's a lot of those rule changes, like the bonuses and all that. That's for inefficiencies on their team because they draft poorly. Yeah. That's the way I looked at it.
No, I agree. That or you're just so bored with fantasy football that you just got to find new ways to do things,
which is cool. It's interesting. I'm in this league, tight end premium, so they get the 1 point PPR plus another 0.75. I've never done that before, but you know what? I'm not afraid to try it.
And to me, that's like, okay, when I draft, I usually end up with this on my roster, so I'm going to make a premium on it so I can kind of get an advantage. But personally, I don't understand.
There's not that many.
I don't see what's wrong with the standard tight ends, wide receivers, flex. But again, I like IDP, and a lot of people don't. So
when you go back, I never played IDP.
And when you go back to it, it's the wide receivers and the PPR and all that. It's something that, like you were talking about, Clay, it was a motion that was passed. They had the majority vote, and what they did is we amended it. We said, okay, they had the majority vote. It's like, man, I'll tell you what, if you make it a half a point, I'll be in favor of it. We'll give it a shot. And like you said, it's compromised, but that's how it went. We're going to amend the current motion. And it tied back to, I think we did the same thing with IDP. We didn't amend anything.
Yeah. So a lot of the things in our league is like whenever we do vote to go somewhere, it's been like a gradual process from redraft to dynasty. Yeah, we went keeper. The first time we were keeper, you could keep 3 players, and it had to be 3 different positions.
And so we expanded too. We went to 12 teams after that too.
Right, and then we did keeper the next time for the next year, and you could keep 3 players, but 2 could be at the same position. Because I fought for that because at one time I had Ray Rice, Adrian Peterson, and Marshawn Lynch. They were in their prime. They didn't do me no good if I couldn't keep them all. And then I was finally just, why don't we just go dynasty? It was brought up and it was like, might as well. We're on the path. Yeah. What are you going to do? Add a keeper every year? No, let's just dynasty now.
So did you transition with your rosters from your redraft into Dynasty, or did you have an all-new Dynasty?
No, from the rosters we had at that moment.
We went into a discussion. It was like, I think it was 2 years out. We went to keeper, and then we did the position thing.
So you had 2 years with keeper, and then set it as your Dynasty.
That's how we got it. Because we wanted to give a heads up, and everybody kind of voted on it. If we're going to do it.
If I didn't know we were going to go Dynasty next year, and I, was in last place and kind of dumped some of my pieces, I'd have been pretty pissed. But
yeah, that's why. Yeah, we didn't. We're going dynasty crap. And then it's the same thing with we're in IDP now. It's 2, 2, and 2. That's not how it was when we first did our IDP.
Would you go 1, 2, 1, or
it was 1, 1, and 1? I
think.
Yeah,
1, 1, and 1. And then we opened.
Or it might have been 2 flexes.
I think it was 2 flexes. Then we went 2, 2, 2. We went all out.
Yeah.
And then we opened up more roster spots, and they're specifically for defensive players.
Yeah, to balance out, so you have the 3 for just defense, so you don't not hoarding other players.
And that ties back into the disciplinary committee. That's another thing you guys look for is make sure that they do have 3 defensive players, or I think it might be 4.
It's crazy. It's grown ass men and women, and you don't think you have to babysit. Most of them are people you've known for years, but yet they're still cheating ass.
I'll be honest with you. I was the president. I'm not the president anymore, so I'm sneaky about it. I'm not trying to cheat, but I am trying to.
Yeah, Pat has 7 running backs on his roster right now somehow, and our limit's 6.
With the roster, now we're expanded rosters.
No,
now.
he had 2 on the PS.
Loopholes.
So
I had 1 on the PS.
1 on the PS, 2 on IR.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, he's still. But he has to make the adjustment.
Yeah, because we're in expanded rosters right now, so I'm gonna have to. I can't draft any. I'm gonna have to drop. I'm gonna have to drop them.
Crap anyways. So, kind of talking about rosters and everything like that. Owners who don't really keep up or set their rosters weekly, they miss bye weeks and things like that. What's the best way of going about handling that and making sure it's not a consistent thing?
Well, that's the thing. See, so sometimes I'll leave a guy. Sometimes since it is dynasty and you're not always rotating your roster, sometimes buys won't land together. And sometimes I'm leaving them in because I'm not, it's someone I'm not dropping, or, it's vice versa. But if it is consistent, so if I see someone like 2 weeks in a row not make an adjustment, or someone comes back from injury or their bye week and you leave them on the bench and the dude on the bye week still in your starting lineup, I'm on the committee, so I'm going to catch it, or I'm going to see it, and I'm going to run it by, the higher up, VP or president. And then hopefully from there, there's, hey, man, I see what's going on, blah, blah.
We get a nice little shout out on Facebook saying, hey, you're in violation.
Exactly, yeah. Hey, you're blah, blah, blah. And then, and if it keeps on, then, we have rules in place. If they don't do their rosters, we start taking
What kind of rules? Draft picks, or is it, what's the best way as far as that goes?
The first time is a warning. I think they usually warning.
Yeah, we issue the warning, and then we go after draft picks out. Your later rounds, and then after a while, if you're consistent, I think we will take your first round.
Yeah, it keeps up. We have somebody who just stops showing up to meetings and doesn't set his lineups, constantly complaining and things like that. What do you do as far as an owner like that? Do you want to suspend him? Do you want to kick him out? How's that process work?
There's 2 things that are basically that I try to. When I was president, what I try to do is I lost a couple owners during the. You're going to lose some. I always try to give
Thankfully for me.
Yeah, I try to give them the option of saying, hey man, are you still part of this? Because I don't want them to get voted out. You don't ever want an owner to get voted out, because then they feel like everybody's ganging up on them, and it's not what you want in the league, because you don't want your league as a whole.
You split. Because there's people who are going to be on the side of the owner and some that are on your side.
So something we typically did is we give a warning, and usually by the time you get to the point where you're taking a draft pick, or you get a warning, and after that we put them on probation, let them know they're on probation. And probation is almost like dynasty purgatory. We put it to where you can't trade.
I can't trade any of my players, guys. What the hell's going on?
And I actually want to enforce it more to where they can't drop or pick up players because I don't want them to damage.
Almost freeze their team.
Yeah, almost freeze their team to where they can't do any damage because if they're on their way out. And to me, that's a simple meaning of, hey, man, I made a mistake. I've been out. I'm going through this, going through that.
Well, and it allows them time to re-show their commitment.
That's it.
Or show their lack of commitment one way or the other.
And that's what it boils down to because it's like we need to know, man, if you're going to be out, let us know. And if you're going to be out at the end of this year, whatever, because then we can have the president take over the team and basically, the vice president. And what we have established there is the fact that if they do drop out, that one of the officers will take over the team and they'll basically in the bylaws it states that they'll start the roster based off of the highest projected points by whatever the body is, ESPN, Yahoo, NFL.com, whichever one is going to do that.
I mean, I think it goes back to communication. If you're going to be like, hey, I got something going on, about just let the president, somebody, officer, however you running your league know, hey, I'm not going to be managing my roster, emergency, or whatever you got going on, because that way you don't got to worry about people freaking out and disciplining you.
Well, with Dynasty on your rosters, that kind of one thing we do in our league is we have IR and practice squads. In a redraft league, you don't really have to stay on top of the injury. You can just let guys go, not have to worry about it. Not so much in Dynasty. How did y'all go about putting those in place in the league as far as deciding how many spots and when did y'all do that and how did y'all do that?
It was an evolution.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we only had one IR when we started. Like I said, most of the things we start and to compromise and then we add to it.
And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before too. Is you kind of it's not that you get bored, but you're looking at other things. And that's what I like about Dynasty is there's always something that you can tweak or adjust, and we learn something new every year, and we've been doing it for a while. But yeah, we started out with one IR. The practice squads was a nice twist. I think some people call them different names.
Taxi squads.
Yeah, it's different name, but that's along those terms. And then we went to the second IR because you have Dynasty players and you don't want to drop them, especially you make an investment. Look, we'll use David Johnson from this year as a prime example of injured. You don't want him taking up a bench spot all year that you could replace him with.
Well, and same thing on a practice squad. I drafted Zay Jones this year. He played. He was okay. A lot of people expected big things from him early. Me, not so much, but I think he's got potential. It's a good place for your practice squad. Guys that you want to have on your team 2-3 years into their career, but aren't going to contribute right away. It really makes a difference when you're drafting rookies. Not so much in a redraft league.
Especially because we have the position limit. So yeah, we got roster space, but you can only have 5 running backs, max. So I mean that's why IR. Like you don't want to be dropping David Johnson because you want to pick someone else.
And especially with IDP as well, because IDP takes up more roster spots. And do you want to carry 2 extra linebackers, or do you going to save that space for a running back? Where's your value at?
Just depends.
And that's what's great about Dynasty is the intricacies that you get into, because there's so many little strategies that you go into it. Like obviously, like Chad said, I've got 7 running backs. I was technically over the limit at the end of the year, but they were on IR in the practice squad. But now we're in our off season, so the rosters are expanded to where I'm gonna have to make cuts. We just like in the NFL, we have to cut down to a certain amount of the roster, and it has to fall within that. That was something we established in the bylaws as well. Basically, the bylaws are our governing body. They establish everything, and if you're out of compliance or you're outside of what you're supposed to be doing,
and do y'all update those routinely, or is it pretty set? Or
well, it depends. If we're making rule changes, then we have to change it in the bylaws. So as long as we're not making a rule change, the bylaws should be up to date with our rules. Shouldn't be so any owner has access. You got any question about the scoring or why am I being disciplined for not doing my roster? It's all right there.
Yes,
you agree.
We have those owners that make sure to point out that it's in the bylaws.
We have another bylaw committee. They review. There's 3 people on that committee, and
I'm actually part of that committee.
Yeah, that's good.
That's my first committee I've been in this league, and it's
and part of that job is there's 3 spots, and one of them is reserved for the president. The president's supposed to always be on that committee, and the other 2 spots, they review the bylaws each year and make sure they're up to date. And technically, heading into the new year, they should be up to date going to the new going to new meetings. And that's going to be a question that owners will ask. I'll ask, hey, are the bylaws up to date? And if it's a no, then it's like, well, let's discuss that.
When do you like to do your draft in a dynasty league? Because in a regular redraft league, you do it right before the season starts, a couple weeks, and it's done. How does a dynasty work?
We wait till after the NFL draft. Ours is the first week in July. Training camp starting and all that. We have our draft. That way, you can draft because we have to make cuts. That way we can watch you watch your preseason, evaluate the players you drafted, and see who you're going to keep. Because, I mean, we're pretty close. We're not NFL owners, but we're owners of our teams. And
With that, you have cut days, you have trade deadlines.
Cut day is the Wednesday before the first Thursday game of the regular season.
In English, please.
It's the Wednesday before the first Thursday night game of the regular season.
So basically the start of the season.
Start of the season, yeah. I mean, we did it. It's actually midnight, but there's a lot of trades and all that. Actually, that's what we love too about Dynasty. A lot of you guys know that you can trade draft picks. There's so much trading that happens on draft day. I actually just got a little adrenaline rush because it's so cool.
I thought you were going somewhere
6 to
else.
midnight.
I know, right?
6 to midnight.
Right, that's it, baby.
Well, okay, talking about trades, vetoes. I know in redraft leagues, people like to be able to veto. It's a little necessary because you'll have the guys trying to dump their teams. Dynasty, do you recommend vetoes on trades or?
I'm actually completely opposed to vetoes. I don't think anybody should have any power over. I mean, if we see a superstar going for someone that's not playing, we'd probably have to intervene or talk about it amongst the league. That's why we have our trade deadline, so way people aren't at the end of the year dumping scrubs for superstars. Just to help somebody win, which you don't want to do in Dynasty. We even have a rule: you can't not set your roster in a tank because it's all about integrity in Dynasty and. If you're not upholding the integrity in the league, then it's going to fail.
The trade question kind of ties me into it's on your draft. Is it okay to have an online draft or do you prefer in-person draft? I think personally the whole being there, the camaraderie, the draft day trades are incredible, like what goes on in the room when there's 12 of us there and trying to wheel and deal. Is online okay though, or do you think it should be a in-person to the fullest extent?
If you have to do online, you can get by. I mean, it is a way to draft, but I agree 100%. We make it a point for ours to be offline, and I will never, ever be in favor of it going online. I will fight it tooth and nail, and I will pay people under the other owners under the table.
And Pat is dedicated. The first year in this league, Pat was on vacation with his wife and FaceTimed or Skyped in for our draft.
Yeah. I actually made a trade.
Phone on the side, he would kind of walk away, get on his phone and come back.
That stop was a very specific stop because me and the wife had discussed it. God bless her. She's dealt with this for years. She gets it. Actually, that's an important part of Dynasty too, is if you have a significant other, they need to understand what you're getting into because it's something that, it's not that intense, but they need to understand how important draft day is.
Yes. If anything, draft. If you have to break up for a 24-hour period, that's the day to do
That's it.
Then you buy her flowers or something the next day. Kiss and make up.
Yeah, for those couples that you get hall passes, that's a good time to cash it in.
My advice is get your significant other involved in fantasy football, even if it's in a redraft way, so they can kind of get the feel of what it's about and understand it, and then it's not so hard on you.
Great advice.
Yeah.
But it's something that the trading offline, like Chad mentioned it. I know Clay, we touched on it too. It's something that room is just so intense. I mean, you're crazy. You're running off and you're talking in the kitchen, or like for us when we do if we go out to a shooting range or the casino, we get a suite at the casino or something. I think we've had it at the hotel in the boardroom. We walk out of the room and you make a trade and you announce the trade, and it's pretty neat. How it all works out and. There's so much activity.
We'll record our draft for the fans and we'll post it.
Yes, definitely.
It'll be intense.
There will be podcasts.
Not
next
safe
year.
for work. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, that'll be perfect, man.
Will
Because it gets pretty intense over there. I love that.
I think that was a pretty good start of basis of what it takes to get your startup going, transitioning from a redraft into a dynasty. There's a lot more to get into as far as the day-to-day basis of doing leagues and meetings and whatnot, but I think that pretty much covers anything that you may have question-wise as far as
getting
if
started,
it's the right thing to do, how to do it, getting started up, maybe some of the things you want to do. Anything you want to add on to it as we finish up here? Or
the only thing I would add is that, if you're getting serious about it, we have a guidebook and we have bylaws that you can get. That'll get you started. They're not going to be, in depth to what you want for your bylaws, but it'll get you through. It's where you can add it as you go. But that's something, bylaws to me are the most important thing to have established. That everybody knows that the playing field is even. That's where I'll close out. That's all I've got.
Yeah.
What's the most important thing to you?
The most important thing is committed owners.
I agree.
It's a commitment. The bylaws are very important, but at the same time, you walk around with the thing of bylaws are no good if nobody wants to play with you.
That, and it's if you're having to bring in new guys every year, they're all going to want to change something. They're all, half of them don't know the rules. It takes time to establish that as a player or an owner in a fantasy league. So, having those owners set, they know the rules, they know the bylaws, they know how it works.
One thing I would recommend, like on new owners, if you are replacing an owner, is bring them in one time and let them see how y'all run things. Like I know we did that. He didn't want to play after that.
Yeah, he came into one meeting, and
Yeah.
that was it.
Well, and I learned a lot of that in the draft process because it was a meeting, or not the draft process, the interview process coming in. It was a meet. Y'all had the meeting before y'all actually did the interview,
Yeah.
so I got to sit through that.
Yeah, and you can
that's-
ask us, ask questions, so that we want what you think we're about, and we know what you're about, so we get on the same page.
And we have another guy, Spencer. He sat out there for a couple meetings, and when that guy dropped, I think actually that's when Spencer came in. I think it was that meeting, or it was something like that. He just dropped, and Spencer hung out for a couple of meetings.
And you
that,
find out there's people out there that you never thought would know football or fantasy football and stuff. Like I would have never guessed Spence was a fantasy football guy. That's just what
he won the belt.
Never know what these guys like to do. So, all right. Well, I think that wraps up this edition of the Dynasty Wise podcast. You can find me at DynastyWise Chat on Twitter. Clay is at DynastyWise Clay.
Mm-hmm.
Pat at DynastyWise Padu, or at DynastyWise Fantasy Football, and DynastyWise.com.
Yeah, you can slide in the DMs and ask us questions as well, and anything you want to know, and I'll be glad to help.
For sure.
You can also email us at fantasyfootball@dynastywise.com.
And stay tuned for the Dynasty strategy coming soon.
Yeah, I'm ready when you are. Chatty. Chatty catty.
Welcome to Dynasty Wise. Oh, hold on. Throat.
You're good.
Y'all
Brain Fizar.